There's always one dish we really miss about our mom's cooking. A dish that kind of defines your childhood and your eating experience with your family growing up. And for me, is this dish we're going to make today. So the original recipe actually involves scrambled eggs. So it's scrambled eggs stewed with tomatoes. And then lo and behold, I turned vegan. And that kind of messed up my mom's plan slightly. So throughout the years, she's been trying different ingredients, trying to veganize, and the dish she always cooked for me. She was a great cook. And I said was because she passed away in the summer of 2016, and I miss her every day. So I don't need a lot of photographs to remind me of her because I can see her everywhere. But through cooking the dishes she used to make for me, it's a different way to connect with my mom and experience it through eating, really. And this is a dish I make myself all the time. So today I'm going to show you how to do it. So the ingredients you need a lot of tomatoes. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I actually got 8 of them. And it looks like a lot, but it really isn't because everything is going to get stewed. They're literally going to disintegrate into the dish. And you also need a lot of spring onions. The spring onions can't be replaced by any other ingredients. You can't replace it with garlic. I mean, you can, but it wouldn't be the same dish. Spring onions is really the soul of this dish. Something happens when you cook spring onions and tomatoes together. So you need a lot of spring onions, and you also need tofu. So this is silken tofu, and I use it a lot for a lot of things. So as I said, the original recipe was created with scrambled eggs. So we're using silken tofu to recreate kind of smooth and creamy texture. And you also need some rice. So we're going to have this with white rice. You can use brown rice if you want, and you can technically use any kind of rice. You can use basmati or long grain, but I really recommend short grain rice if you can get hold of it. Even better if you can get hold of Japanese rice. So this is Japanese rice. So I'm going to use probably 2 cups today. And really importantly, you will need toasted sesame oils. So if you have seen my previous videos, you will know that this is kind of a dish that combines all my favorite ingredients. It's got tomatoes, it's got tofu, and it's got my favorite toasted sesame oil. It has to be toasted because it's got that unique toasted flavor that you don't get with the raw oil. Before I start chopping the vegetables, we want to get the rice started. For those of you who have rice cookers, then use rice cookers, but most people probably don't. So I'm going to show you how to cook it with a pot and still come up with the most fluffy, beautiful cooked rice. So it depends on how much rice you cook. You want a small to medium pot like this. And then you wash the rice thoroughly, and I do mean thoroughly. You want to wash it and rinse it till the water is pretty much clear, and then drain before you cook it. The ratio between rice and the water you need is 1 cup of rice versus 1.5 cup of water. So I've got 2 cups here, so I'm going to add 3 cups of water. So that's what I'm going to do. So with the water, you can put cold water in there and bring it to the boil, and then add the rice. Alternatively, if you want the speed, just using boiled water from the kettle. So I've got about 3 cups here that I add in. So that should be okay for 2 cups of rice. And I'm going to turn the heat on and cover the lid and bring it to boil. So what you want to do is just to put the rice quite carefully. It's very hot. So just make sure all the rice is in there. And use a wooden spoon to stir it. And keep the heat quite strong. It's not a good time to leave the kitchen. So first few minutes, you really want to watch it and keep stirring it so the rice is not going to stick at the bottom of the pan. Just give it a stir every now and then to make sure there's nothing stuck at the bottom. Okay, I think we're good. Once it's boiling, you want to cover the lid and then reduce the heat to the lowest you can and let it cook for about 12 minutes. So you want to set the timer. So I've washed the vegetables and dried them. So now we're going to chop them. So you might notice I'm using a huge amount of spring onions, and it's really the way it's supposed to be. So I'm not using the spring onion as a garnish or a topping. I'm using it almost like a vegetable. And this is actually essential. So the way you cut tomatoes is up to you. This is really family cooking, so there's no rules. So everything's going to get cooked down. So it kind of doesn't matter what shape you cut it. So this is a dish you probably wouldn't find in restaurants. I've been eating this dish since I was a kid, living in Taiwan. My mum continued to cook this whenever she's in town, visiting me. So a lot of fun memories. My mum is such a resourceful person. When I turned veggie, back in a few years, she had to kind of think up all sorts of ways to jazz up dishes. I think traditionally people still think that if there's no meat involved, there's no flavor in the dishes. And then through cooking together with me, she kind of realized that you don't need meat stock, chicken stock, to make a dish taste nice. You actually get to taste flavors of vegetable for the first time when you start eating plant-based food. So don't be alarmed by the quantity of tomatoes because everything is going to get cooked down. So I'm going to leave some larger pieces like this. So just to give it a texture. You can even cut the smaller pieces finer if you want to. You will speed up the cooking time, but for me that's okay. Now I'm going to cut the spring onions. So I'm going to chop this finely, but I'm going to save up 2 of them because I want them to go on top of the dish. So I want them to be chopped slightly finer. So I'm going to save this for later. And now I'm going to chop the spring onions. So you just kind of slice them in. You can cut them slightly smaller, but you don't want them to be too small. They're going to stew with the tomato, so you don't want them to totally disappear. And it's really nice to see the green and red together. The color is just beautiful. Okay, so that's my spring onion. Now we're going to cut the tofu in cubes. So I'm going to just show you how I open packets like this. I know some people find it a bit difficult, and quite often by the time you open a packet, everything in there is in pieces. So I tend to just cut these 2 edges off, and I showed this in another video when I make miso soup as well. So you cut the 2 edges and then you just put your scissors. So it's important to have a pair of kitchen scissors, so handy. And then you just cut the side and open, and you can open up like a little lid. And from this point, what you want to do is bring a bowl because it's some liquid inside. So you just tip it over and gently squeeze it out like this. And that's the whole piece intact. Easy, right? Easy when you know how. So let's cut the tofu. So you slice it sideways like that. And you cut it lengthways twice. And then the rest is easy. You just chop. So you end up with kind of even size of cubes like this. As the rice is boiling, we can start cooking the dish. So turn the heat on, kind of medium to strong heat. And then we're going to add some olive oil. Just a splash of olive oil. And also we want to add a dash of the toasted sesame oil as well. And then just give it a swirl like this. As the frying pan is heating up, the first thing we want to add is the spring onion. We want to just chuck the whole lot in there. I mean, spring onion is really one of my favorite vegetables. And as I said, I don't use it like a garnish. I literally just put tons of it. I use it like vegetables. I wish you could smell it. It just smells so good. Spring onion fried with toasted sesame oil is just heavenly. So you want the spring onion to cook, but we don't want it to brown. We want to retain that green color. And this is such a quick dish, so if you get the rice going, within the 12 minutes, this dish should be done, really. So the timing-wise is just perfect. And now we're going to add the tomatoes. So just chop them in. Oh, that beautiful noise, sizzling noise. So you want to stir it gently. I mean, this is such a simple dish. This is probably not something that you will get in a restaurant. I certainly never had it in a restaurant. This is ultimate family food. So you want to keep the heat reasonably strong. Depends on how firm the tomato is, the cooking time will vary. But this is a great dish to use up tomatoes that's probably too soft or too ripe for salad. This dish is perfect for ripened tomatoes. So if you have tomatoes left over, this is a dish for you. So once the tomato is slightly cooked down, you want to reduce the heat slightly, small to medium heat, and then cover it with a lid and leave it to stew for a little while. For me, this is a signature dish for my mum because she always cooks this dish whenever she's in town, whenever she's in London. So you kind of become a child again and experience that, cooking with your mum in the kitchen. When she was in the kitchen, she was always the boss. So I was always the one that just tidies things up, chopping things, running the errands. It was always a wonderful experience. So 12 minutes is up. I'm going to check the rice and turn the heat off. It's looking good. So there's still quite a lot of moisture on the surface at this point. What you want to do is to stir it with a spatula, just to fluff it up. Also let the excess liquid and steam escape. And then cover the lid up. So you want to leave it and let it steam with its own heat for about 10 minutes before it's ready to be eaten. So let's look at the tomatoes. Oh my God, it smells wonderful. I'm going to turn the heat down slightly to medium, and you can see that it's all really squashy now. It's nicely stewed. And now we're going to season it. I've got some soy sauce here. You can use any kind of soy sauce. I'm not going to give you the exact measurement because it's really up to your taste. If you give it a splash like this, it adds a bit of color as well. And then a pinch of salt. So you want to add some and then taste it and then decide if you need any more. And on top of that, we want to add a pinch of sugar as well. It says salt there, but it's actually sugar. I'm gonna just give some sugar. So it kind of counteracts that with that sourness from the tomato. A couple of teaspoons should do it. And stir it. So at this point we want to add tofu to it. So you want to be quite gentle because otherwise the tofu is going to be broken in pieces. Okay, and maybe bring the heat up slightly to medium and then stir it gently. So it's been stewing with the tofu for a few minutes now. I'm gonna have a look. Oh, it smells fantastic. So this is ready. I'm going to turn the heat off and serve it. And before we serve it, we're going to splash some toasted sesame oil. So there you go. Here's my mum's signature dish. One of them anyway. It smells so wonderful. I can't wait to eat it. Here's my chopsticks. The sourness and sweetness of the tomatoes and the spring onions and the silky smooth texture from the tofu. It's just wonderful. So what I learned from my mom is that good things don't have to be complicated, and life can be very, very simple if you choose it to be. And it definitely has a profound impact on how I live my life. If you follow your heart, do what you love to do, and you have a roof on your head and a bowl of delicious food that you enjoy, that's happiness. It really doesn't take a lot to be happy. I hope you tried this dish, and I hope you like the video. See you next time.